back to the Zach Djellab channel, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, this is Nothing But Football, the show where we talk only about football, exclusively about football. But Ben, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I want to talk about football. I'm ready to talk about
Well,
football.
you are on the right show, my friend.
Let's talk about football.
You're on the right show. I like this little stripy number.
Thanks very much, mate.
We've all got
Cheers.
some nice tops on. Henry, me and you going for the shirts today. How are you doing?
Absolutely. It's not my favourite kind of shirt, because my favourite kind of shirt is a football shirt.
Exactly.
Because you want to talk about football.
Yeah, because I'm here to talk about football and nothing else.
How are you doing, Henners? The fans at home haven't seen you for a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's if I had to define how my last few weeks have been, I'd say 2-0 to me. So yeah,
Nice.
Clean sheets.
Nice, yeah.
Clean sheets.
And away from home as
Clean
well.
sheets at home. Yeah. Oh, it's very exciting.
Love it. Well then, guys, before we crack into today's episode of Nothing But Football, I want to quickly ask you guys, because I'm doing a little bit of planning for next season. I've got things, as I said, me and Ben mentioned last week, that I've got things working away behind the scenes. But I want to talk to you guys as well about what you think of Patreon, what you think of maybe a YouTube membership to get extra content as well. Look, I'm not ever going to just make someone that can't pay or doesn't want to pay get nothing. Of course, that's not how it will work at all. But I was wondering what you guys would be willing to pay or what you'd be willing to pay for as well. So in the comments, I'm going to have a little thing there that I've put a comment, read it, and then if you want, leave a reply saying you would do something, this is how much you might want to pay, this is what you'd like in return. Just trying to think about a few things and what we could do as well going into next season. So yeah, if you get in the comments and let me know there, that would be greatly appreciated. Henry?
Can I just say, Zach puts in so much work to make this kind of content. He's taken the legacy of what we used to do at Football Daily, and he's really tried to carry that forward.
Thank you, mate.
If you saw him behind the scenes on his Chelsea video the other day, working incredibly hard, like this stuff isn't easy, and it's not a case of just being like, let's make as much money as possible. It's just a case of making it a situation for Zach where he can continue to put the best content forward for you guys. Like, he does this because he bloody loves doing it, and I think that's really important to stress, and he works so hard to do it. So
I second that. I second all those comments.
Thank you, boys. I really appreciate that. And yeah, if you haven't watched the Chelsea video from last week, please do check that out as well. You can see Henry kicking a ball about as well, which is what everybody wants to see.
One of the worst misses ever.
Check out Henry's Instagram for that as well. But yes, please get in the comments, because genuinely, that would all kind of go back into the channel and making more content for next season. So yeah, thank you for that. Let's crack on with today's video, because guys, we're going to be looking at one problem every Premier League club needs to fix before the season starts. Now, on Twitter, on social media, on YouTube's community section, which is brand new, I put a message out asking for you guys at home to let me know what you think your club needs to fix. What do they need to do before the season kicks off? And you guys answered in your hundreds. So thank you very much. Nice. I do appreciate it. We've got a suggestion for basically every team. Fulham, though, I decided we'll wait for Henry and get his opinion. So get thinking about that, Henners. But without further ado, let's kick things off. Of course, as we're covering 20 teams, we're going to try and go through this at a good pace and cover everybody with an equal amount of time. I do apologise.
We'll spend 20 minutes on Chelsea and then we'll
do half an hour on Spurs, Fulham for 10, and everyone else 2 minutes. But yeah, okay. So let's kick things off with Nottingham Forest. Obviously, so far they've been a little bit busy in the window, being linked to a couple of Brazilian guys who actually are playing in the Club World Cup at the moment. But the biggest thing, and I think it's understandable, especially now that they're going to be playing in Europe next season, is depth. Yeah. That is one of the big issues here. Up front, they've got Chris Wood and Tyrell Awoniyi in the kind of role that Gibbs White plays. There is nobody else there at the moment. The other side to this as well is contract lengths for a lot of these players are dwindling down. Gibbs White, 2 years left. Callum Hudson-Odoi, 1 year left. Chris Wood, 2 years left. Now, this isn't necessarily a huge impact for this season. However, going forward, it does become a little bit of a problem. Headers, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you really did summarise it there. We saw at the end of last season, they ran out of steam, and maybe the gravitas of the situation they found themselves in began to catch up with that squad. And unfortunately for Nuno, he didn't really have plan B. There wasn't really many rotation options, which to energise that squad or give it a lift. Like, if Chris Wood isn't firing, we saw him struggle, let's say, in the final game of the season against Chelsea, missing a few opportunities that really you'd have backed him to score earlier in the season. Awoniyi's just sort of dropped off so much since when he first came to the Premier League. I like Awoniyi. I think he's I think he's a half decent.
Had that awful injury as well.
Yeah, I think he'll get a move to a nice team at some point if he wants. But as I said, the options aren't really there. And even Ryan Yates off the bench, he's a very solid player, but is he at the level to sort of elevate that squad even further? I don't know. So yeah, I think what Forest need to do, the most important thing for them to do is this summer, and that's consolidate the squad.
Yeah.
Get some of those contract lengths. I think someone like Hudson-Odoi, who they didn't really have to spend much money to get in anyway, I wouldn't be surprised if other suitors are willing to trump whatever he's on there. But they just need to be in a position next year where they do have a plan B. I think that's the most important thing. And as you say, Conference League, I back them certainly in the earlier stages of the competition.
I think they go quite far in the Conference League.
Yeah, I think so.
They should do well. There's some half decent teams in it, but I think last year was a low moment for the competition in terms of the 3 years that it's been running. Hence, Chelsea were able to win it because you're crap. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. But yeah, for me, it's just consolidate the team, get a plan B, and put yourself in a position where you can be more flexible tactically.
Yeah.
Because once teams are able to find them out a little bit last year, that's when they looked a bit more open.
Yeah. Well, even Williams only has 1 year left. Ola Aina, obviously, they got the extension done in the end, so he's got one more season. So a few quite key players, Ben, going into their final years. We know Nuno likes to work with a compact squad, doesn't want huge number. I think to be honest, Premier League managers generally don't want to go too big. So it is something that I think for Forest, generally, it's just about getting players through the door and get those numbers up.
Yeah, he always worked with quite a small squad at Wolves as well, didn't he? And he got back-to-back European finishes there. So it's possible again, but I do think, I was quite critical of Forest, like many people, like Henry just said, about not having that plan B or that variance in their style of play towards the end of the season, and maybe that kind of reliance on being a solid box defending team that counter-attacks, that's not necessarily that sustainable.
Yeah.
But there will be a lot of Forest fans that will probably argue that the reason that they weren't able to have that plan B is because of that squad depth or the lack of squad depth. So it'd be interesting to see if they do consolidate the squad that summer, whether we see more variance from Nuno into next season. But I definitely think if they do want to consolidate European football again, potentially, Forest have got the ability to attract decent players. They've got good players already there, which they're probably not going to lose now as well. Obviously, I think Reinder's going to City and Cherki going to City as well. Kind of that's poured ice or poured water on that Gibbs White move, unless he maybe goes somewhere else. But I can't really see that now. So they've got strong foundations. They're not going to lose Murillo. They're not going to lose Milinkovic. They've got strong foundations to kick on. So maybe, I guess this summer is the acid test to see whether the squad depth is the issue that causes Nuno to be less flexible, or whether even if they do bring in players in, he's still kind of wedded to that style of play. Because the managers in the Premier League, it's a constantly ever-evolving league, so you have to change. The best managers do that, do adapt. And Nuno's done an amazing job, but if he wants to marry up what the ambitions quite clearly are of the owners off the pitch as well. They're a very ambitious football club. Marinakis wants to achieve big things there, and he's been very vocal about that. Then I think Nuno is probably going to have to find another way to play to make them win more games. Otherwise, teams will figure Forest out even more continually next season. But there's no reason why they can't have a good shot at that Conference League as well. And if Forest were to go back to a mid-table finish next year but win that, they would absolutely love that. So I think it's the acid test for Nuno really this summer to see.
No, indeed. Obviously, as I said, they brought in 3 players, a striker, a left-back. They definitely need a left-back, that's for sure. And a centre-back. They really do need another attacking mid. Just someone to play kind of second fiddle to Gibbs White. The difficult thing is you just know you're never going to play, really, when Gibbs White's there at the moment. There we have it, the Forest. It is all about depth. When I spoke to Bournemouth fans, they came in with an interesting one, up the cherries, saying basically that they think their loan department needs work. And I don't know if you guys would fully agree or disagree. They think that basically the guys they are sending out on loan are players who they have no use for anymore. Obviously, we saw Billing go out to Napoli last season, and rather than giving their younger guys or academy products or people that are young and maybe need a bit more game time, this loan experience and a season elsewhere, they're giving it to the wrong people. Now, I don't know if that's 100% what you guys would agree with. You think there's something else that Bournemouth need to do generally for next season? Obviously, they've lost Dean Huijsen, but they do have the Spanish guy who I'm forgetting at centre-back. That isn't Dean Huijsen there as well. He's done a pretty good job.
Senesi.
Yeah,
Senesi, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if that... What's the first thing if I say to you?
I don't know what they're meant to do. Philip Billing, I imagine he's on fairly decent wages in the realm of Bournemouth. And if Napoli are going to come in for him and say, we'll take him off your hands for 6 months, because they've got a lot of players in the middle, like Tyler Adams,
Alex Scott.
So I don't really know what Bournemouth are going to do in that regard. I wouldn't say. I'm probably going to sound stupid here. It's not like I go, "Oh, Bournemouth's academy is one to watch," is it? It's not. It's not.
Really
It's
kind of coming through like.
Yeah, exactly. It's never. They've always bought well. They've always bought youngsters well and brought them up that way. I don't necessarily remember a load of occasions where they've elevated youngsters to the squads. Certainly not since the early like Eddie Howe days where you used to have such a solid unit. So no, I don't think that's the biggest problem. Bournemouth's biggest problem is proving that they've got the ability to attract the kind of quality that they did last season, ultimately. Because if Zabani and Huijsen and Kerkez goes, which is looking like it's going to happen, they can't go to Zabani, you're not allowed to move to PSG.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen, really, is it?
Yeah. Semenyo linked heavily.
I think Treffer is an unbelievable signing, by the way. I think that's a really, really good signing. We've been pushing him on Continental Club and places like that for ages. He's such a solid left back for Rennes, captain too. What they need to prove is that they have the pulling power and the nous to go out and get the kind of players to fill these voids. Like the windows they had last year where they get Huijsen in, etc. They're not always easy to repeat, if that makes sense. Like, I remember when Leicester sold Kante. And they were like, "Don't worry, we found the replacement." I can't remember who it was. Mendy.
Did they get Samari as well? Leicester, was that?
Well, it might have been.
Forest brought in.
But I remember, I can't remember who their director of football was at the time. But he was like, "Don't worry, guys, I found."
Mendy was the big one.
He was like, "I found the new Kante. Don't worry, this Mendy guy." And it's just not been the case. So the point is, they need the scouting department at Bournemouth needs to prove that they've got the ability to go again.
Yeah, that's the thing, because so far their track record is 100% in terms of being able to bring in these players. That's why I'm not that worried about Bournemouth next season, because you're kind of looking at it through the lens of, well, the same scouting department that have got replaced Zabani, Howson and Kerkez were the same scouting department that identified those three players in the first place. But again, it's how sustainable is that? There might be one window that eventually the cycle does break and then it goes wrong. Who's the I can't remember the name of the centre back that they've been heavily linked with from Bologna, I think, as well, who's very I didn't know much about him, but from what Bournemouth fans have sort of said, and a lot of people said that have watched him, he's very highly rated. But again, can he step up into the shoes of Dean Howson, who has gone to the biggest club in the world? Zabani is going to go to the Champions League winners potentially as well. There's been a lot of talks linking Semenyo with a move away as well, potentially to Tottenham or to Manchester United or somewhere else. It's going to be a big summer for them to prove. Yeah, Henry's right. I'm not best placed to talk about Bournemouth's loan activity. That's definitely one for Bournemouth. If that's something that they feel is something that needs to be worked on, obviously 100%. But looking at it from the outside, looking in, I think that is the biggest thing. Like Henry said, it's like making sure they prove they can actually do it again. Because I trust them. I look into next season and think, your gut feeling is that they'll be fine because they were the same team and same scouting department that brought in those players in the first place. But that's one thing doing it, or one thing saying it, and then seeing it actually come to fruition is another thing. So it'd be interesting to see.
John Lukumi is the man you're talking
that's
about.
It.
Jon Lukumi.
Yeah.
Maybe I've butchered the pronunciation. That's him.
Yeah. Okay then. Well, Bournemouth fans, let us know in the comments below what you think there. We're moving on to Thomas Frank's new club, the Lily Whites.
All aboard the Thomas Frank engine.
Oh my God.
That's terrible, isn't it? It's so bad. A lot of Spurs fans have been saying that needs to stop.
Yeah, it does need to stop.
It is quite funny how they were like, will there be uproar about sacking Ange? Then they're like, we've got Thomas Frank. Everyone's like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
I'm glad that Frank's finally been given his chance now, which is good. I'm afraid I do have to now hate you, Thomas Frank, but and wish you absolutely nothing but the worst. But yeah, we'll see what happens for you. A lot of Spurs fans, I'm sure this is kind of what you would also go with as well, Ben, here, was saying that basically they want Daniel Levy to get his hands out of his pockets and bring in some more depth.
Yeah.
Would you agree, especially now that you're challenging or hoping to challenge in 4 different competitions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Daniel Levy did an interview a couple of days ago with Vinay Venkatesham, who is our new CEO, who was previously at Arsenal, previously worked in the London Olympics as well. He's got a very good track record in terms of being able to improve clubs financially and improve fan engagement. So to kind of sit down and do that open, honest interview alongside Levy, where Levy then went on to say, we want to win the Premier League and we want to win the Champions League. It's like, it's all very well and good saying that, but the investment that's been put into the football club, not necessarily from Levy himself. ENIC are the biggest problem. Levy is just a part of that. And he's kind of the figurehead that rightly or wrongly takes a lot of the flack. Rightly a lot of the time, but sometimes I think from the outside looking in, the waters get muddied a little bit between those two. I think Spurs are fourth lowest for current owner investment in the Premier League. And for a club that wants to have ambitions to win the Premier League and the Champions League, that just doesn't marry up with what's being said. So that is something that 100% needs to change. And also, I'm really, really happy with Thomas Frank, and I'm really more excited to see the players that are already here improve under him rather than the players that we're going to bring in. That's not to say that we don't need to do work in the window. We 100% do, to add quality to that squad, whether that's, again, I don't think Spurs should stop bringing in the likes of Bergvall, Vuskovic, etc., young talents, because I do believe that we've got the ability to scout the best of the best in that kind of realm, but also we need to have proven quality to do that, because as much as I think Spurs will do well under Frank in terms of his ability to be pragmatic and play to the weaknesses of the opposition, coach his teams to win first and foremost. Like, he's not managed at a level where he's playing Premier League and Champions League football, and I think his coaching will 100% get him to a point where Spurs can be stable, competing in all competitions, but he does need that depth on top of that as well. And if you want to, like I said, if your chairman is coming out and saying these things, having these kind of grandiose ambitions, you've got to put your money where your mouth is and back the manager in that sense, regardless of who the manager was going to be this season, whether it was Andrew or whether it was Frank. So that's definitely one thing that needs to change. And again, I don't think Spurs need loads. I don't think we need loads going into this summer. It's not like we're starting again, we need a big overhaul, we need another rebuild. Like I said, I think the thing I'm most excited about is to see the players that are already there actually improve under Frank. But yeah, I would agree with that. That's the big problem that needs to kind of change at Spurs in the summer.
Bring in some depth. To be fair, I think there's a few clubs, especially that are now competing in Europe, that this kind of would fit under. Especially, I guess, if Christian Romero was to move on, then it's not just depth; it's another quality centre back to kind of take his role in that side. But there we have it with Tottenham Hotspur. So I think we've spent. I feel like the last few weeks speaking about Spurs quite a bit. Maybe that's the better effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm happy to move on.
Okay then, Henry Hill, Aston Villa.
Oh yes.
Their big problem, and again, it's been quite glaring, I think, for the last few months, is their finances. PSR, they're really the club looking like they might be in the biggest trouble going into this window, and the knock-on effect of their financial situation is possibly having to sell some of their best players. Morgan Rogers we're seeing linked to a few different clubs. Ollie Watkins' name comes up when the striker market's being spoken about. We've seen Martinez, obviously the goalkeeper, being linked to a few different teams as well.
Jacob Ramsey is another one.
Jacob Ramsey.
I'm gonna have a little rant about this because I got a bit.
Henry, you know what? A Henry rant is good.
I'll probably get called nonce in the comments. But
okay,
it's just
there you go.
I'm so annoyed at Villa fans going, it's just outrageous that we have to sell now. It's outrageous that we have to sell. It's like, well, if you gamble on something and it doesn't work, this is what happens. If you spend all your money on wages and offer people ridiculous contracts and it doesn't work because of the last game of the season, and I am very sympathetic to the fact that there should have been a goal for them which was disallowed. I'm sympathetic to that. Yeah. But let's not pretend that the whole season can be boiled down into one game, because it wasn't one game, okay? There were loads of other games where Villa dropped points, because there was a point where they were quite off the pace in terms of the top five.
So they're battling with Champions League football as well at the same time, weren't they?
And everyone's going, the refs cost us the Champions League. It's like, no, the ref didn't cost you the Champions League. Your other results where you didn't win, where you dropped points, because they dropped points against bad teams last year in certain moments. That is what cost you. You shouldn't have been in a situation where you had to be beating Man United to get in.
And
a poor Man United team as well, just off the back of losing a Europa League final, that's not really an excuse.
There you go. So it just really winds me up that people go, why do we have to sell off our players because of what's happened? It's like,
do your Brummie accent?
Why we have to sell off our players? It's not right. I know. It's Jack Grealish. Anyway, that's my point. And you know what? It's not like just because you're giving all these players loads of money and doesn't mean that they are necessarily the best players on the market. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Just because you've got Asensio, who played for Real Madrid and PSG, and you can't keep him. It's just like, Villa have got to where they've got by investing smartly, going out and making good signings. Well, guess what? Go back to doing that. If you have to sell some of these players like Ollie Watkins, every other team that's not trying to player at that level goes out and does this kind of business. And Villa have proven they can do it. They've got the pulling power. They've got the facilities, the stadium, the manager, the ownership. It's all there to go and get like the best guys that you can elevate a little bit. And I know that sounds tedious, and I know you might think, but like that's what I think United should be doing. Go to teams like Stuttgart, whatever. Go buy some, like, get some the Mittelstadts, this Waldschmidt, I don't know, there's like this big...
Voltsmarder,
go get one of these like guys that people are quoting for like 20, 30 million pounds. You don't need to spend 250 grand a week on someone just because you feel like it's your divine right now. You've been a Champions League team for a year. So my point is, like, if they have to sell a little bit, fine. Because I think I back Villa, back your club to have the ability to go out and replace those players, perhaps with some unknowns. Like, it's not the divine right of a team to spend loads of money on wages on a player. And ultimately, if that course of action backfires, then you're in a Man United situation where you're like, why have we got Casemiro on 300 grand a week? Why have we got X and Y, Z on 250 grand? It's like, why have we done that? It's so stupid. So, like, just be Villa. This is okay. This is okay to sell a few players and almost refresh and start again. You're in the Europa League. You're in Unai Emery's favourite competition.
Which you should win, by the way.
Yeah, and if you win that, and bear in mind, you weren't really in European football for a while before this. You win the
Europa
Europa League, you're back in the Champions League. Like, it is so fine what's going on at Villa right now, in my opinion, even if you do have to sell a few players.
Yeah, I agree. I find it incredibly irritating, this whole idea of like the cartel six and like Villa kind of being on the outside of it. It's not fair what this team are doing. It's like, don't get me wrong, the gamble that they took in January on the wages of Rashford, essentially bringing in Marlon, was worth it. Obviously, it didn't transpire to be worth it, but it was worth it at the time, and they got close. They were an iffy refereeing decision away from getting Champions League football. But like Henry said, like, you have to go back. If you want to boil it down to one instant, you could. Sheffield United fans will do, will do exactly the same thing when their goal was disallowed against. I know that obviously didn't affect Sheffield United that season, but I can't remember who went down off the back of that. But if you want to boil things down to isolated instance, everyone can play that game.
Leicester went down.
I think you're right.
Yeah, Leicester went down.
It's like, everyone can sort of do that. You have to look at yourself. 96% wages to revenue ratio is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. They are the biggest spenders on wages in comparison to their revenue by a mile in the Premier League. I think Chelsea were the second with like 70% or something. It's like, that's a much healthier balance. That's not sustainable. And also, like Henry said, Villa have got a good track record of going and picking off players from the chat. Like Morgan Rogers, a player that might actually end up being sold for potentially 70, 80 million pounds this summer. I don't think it will happen, but you would be in your rights to demand that fee. You picked up for 10 million pounds from the Championship.
Good profit.
Unai Emery is such an excellent manager when it comes to working again with the players that he's got, platforming them, profiling them correctly to actually get the best out of them and turn 10 million pound players into 50 million pound players. Like Henry said, go back to you can do that. Like, I know you want to knock on the door of Champions League football. I know you want to be constantly in that conversation. Villa have done really well to be, I think, the first team outside the top six in maybe ever to finish in Europe 3 years in a row, or the big six, sorry, like to finish in Europe 3 years in a row. It's a great achievement, 100%. You should be proud of that. You've got a good run at the Europa League. Go for it. You've got good players. It's not like you're going to have to have a fire sale and sell absolutely everyone. And it's like, I understand why Villa fans and Newcastle fans will look at Man United and think, how can they keep spending? United's revenue is just absolutely off the scale. Yes, they're going to have to balance the books somehow with selling players for PS to keep in line with PSR. United's PSR leeway is actually quite strong. There's, how they got there, I don't know. And I don't know. I'm with you. It irritates me so much. It really irritates me. I get why they're upset, but you have to look at the logic of the situation and why you're actually there.
I also wonder as well, to be honest, that like if you're a Villa fan right now, you only have to look at, say, maybe Spurs last season winning the Europa League. Like, there's a very good chance you guys can win the Europa League.
If Villa don't win it, I'll
have
a lot of things to say.
It is a tough competition, and also things like there is very like moments of games. Things can happen. You could not get given a goal, which should be a goal, or things do go against you. However, I think there's a much, much higher chance of winning the Europa League and giving you guys that moment of winning a European trophy again, having that kind of shared, because Villa haven't obviously done something like this in a long, long, long time.
I mean, nobody ever speaks about it.
And you can have that moment again. And I wonder whether, like, if we're being realistic, and it's not to just down anybody's chances, the chance of Villa winning the Champions League isn't very high. The chance of them winning the Europa League is quite high. And I think that moment that Villa fans could have them lifting that trophy could be huge for the club. So maybe later down the line, this time next season, we might sit here and go, wow, what an incredible moment that was for them. Okay, Villa, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let us know in the comments below. Chelsea then is our next one for one problem that every club has to fix before the season. The suggestions here were the left wing and goalkeeper position, and also someone put the inability to sign established players. Young players are great, and it's worked out for a decent few, Caicedo, Palmer, and more. But we're linked with yet more young players to fill holes for our team, rather than players ready to compete, which we're not far off doing. Would you tend to agree, or would you think that Chelsea? I mean, he's basically also saying left wing goalkeeper, I guess.
Isn't that a outlined strategy from the ownership? I don't think it's a case that Chelsea can't go and sign these players. They would just rather build a team for the future, or whenever that future is. And
but is there not an argument to say eventually, when does that future become the present? And when it is the present, do they keep signing for the future? So like right now, all the players, for instance, they're still very, very young. They're 22, 23, 24. Do they still sign guys that are 17, 18, 19? Or should they look to sign, okay, maybe we'll get a 25-year-old in, 24-year-old? I think both can be part of the strategy, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think they deserve credit for the fact that like Enzo and Caicedo are actually morphing into what they claimed they would do.
Oh yeah, 100%.
As a midfield.
You show your hand when you get linked to Mike Maignan, like so publicly. You do show your hand as well that you are open to getting an experienced player.
Yeah,
which supposedly, I guess, over the last few years they haven't been as willing to do.
And there's been a lot of chat about like Mark Gahey.
But I guess that was also an opportunity in the market as well, right? Like that had just come up, and who knows, maybe it does come up against Mark Gahey. Though isn't the oldest player in the world either.
I feel like he's a good balance of like still you've got him for if you were to get Mark Gahey back, you'd have him for a long period of time, but also he has got so many miles in the tank and experience, leadership as well at a club that's also just come off the back of winning the trophy. Like I think you're right. Like I know Chelsea have always. This is definitely the way that kind of Chelsea are going under this kind of Bowley, Clearlake kind of project, this regime, so to speak. Like, but at the end of the day, I think it's not like you're signing the young talents that you are signing are some of the best.
Quite established players. Yeah.
Like they are some of the best in the world. But I think there's a balance to be struck. I think because you can see like last season where you went on that run where you were nearly top of the league at Christmas or whatever it was. Like there is an argument to say Chelsea are quite close, and especially when you look at how City and Liverpool have strengthened, I think that's where Chelsea fans are probably getting a bit frustrated because it now feels like, obviously you fell away in the second half of the season but regained it back to get Champions League football. Is there a gap then being bridged between Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City again now when actually not long ago you were quite close and showed that actually in the bigger games you could really mix it with the big boys, and it was actually against the lesser teams where you kind of let yourself down a little bit. So you are close. I do get it, but I also think that the likes of Esteval, etc. Like it's not like you're not signing. It feels like it's kind of the best of the best young players out there. So I would kind of trust in it for now, but I understand the need to maybe just add a sprinkling. Like Maignan would be a perfect kind of signing because it's like still got a lot of. He's like 30, but as a goalkeeper, still got a lot left to give. Valuable experience for going back in the Champions League, which again is a competition that a lot of these players haven't played in. Where Chelsea have been out of it for a while. I get it, but I wouldn't be up in arms about it.
Yeah, also Chelsea are in a really nice spot. I think having won the Conference League, another trophy. One thing you can't deny about trophies, Chelsea is their ability to continuously win things. Won it all, yeah. And then top four, like huge end of the season for Chelsea. Put them in a really positive spot. I think Maresca's answered a lot of his doubters.
Yeah. And there's a lot of pressure on those players and manager to get over the line after what had happened as well, and they did that. They didn't buckle. They got to where they need to get to.
I also think you've got to think about like the way they operate in terms of going back to offering these very long contracts to players. They're not paying individuals through the nose, and that's the problem. When you go for established players, you suddenly have to give them. If you think about the whole Mason Mount leaving situations, because Mount was like, "No, I'm a senior player. He's been here a long time. There's lots of turbulence. I want X." They were like, "We're not going to give that to you." Conor Gallagher, exactly the same. So my point being is that they don't want to. They don't want to upset. They don't want to upset their business model because you can't overlook, like, if you get in a player on 250, 300 grand a week. Everyone else in that, Cole Palmer's going to go, hello.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what happened with Sancho, wasn't it? That's part of the reason why Sancho left, because he supposedly demanded more money than Palmer, and Chelsea were like, well, no, we're not doing that.
So it is about being smart and not upsetting the project that they've pitched to all the players so far. Do I think they should go out and get what is it? What position would you
Jamie
like?
Gittins is the one that's been linked to,
Fine.
isn't it?
He's not going to come. He's not going to cost loads, is he? He's not.
50 million was the fee.
Wage-wise,
wage-wise. Sorry,
he'll be fine.
No.
So no, I think to Chelsea fans, I would like continue to trust in this process because it all does make sense so far, and it is producing results. Like a few more established players here and there will be fine, but that's why I like bringing back Chalobah. I think was such a smart move in January because like someone who knows the club.
Hope they don't sell him.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Anyway,
Lindlap, guys. Lindlap, what
Good
a cross.
assist,
What a
lovely
goal. What a
lovely
goal.
cross.
Mate, he's a good player.
This guy is going to be
I don't understand why so many people were so cold on
Eating
that
the
transfer. Like, I really like it.
another one.
Really
30 million, less than 100 grand a week.
Perfect.
I don't actually know the wages. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I'd assume so.
Also, Bowley tying, I saw a video about this the other day. Bowley tying down these players to kind of such long contracts. When you look at Real Madrid, always looking at that free agent market, the club's getting a bit apprehensive.
That's why it happened. That's why it happened
exactly.
with the Rudiger situation. The Rudiger situation, when they joined, when they bought the club, it was like Rudiger had a few months left in his contract, and he was already like, I'm going to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we don't want to get burnt like this again because we've just lost a 50, 60 million pound player here and have seen no profits from it.
Yeah, it's always a risk because it's like if you, like with Madrid, for example, if you sign on a really long contract and then it goes a bit Pete Tong and then you can't get rid of them. But Palmer, like if someone wants to get Palmer out of Chelsea, they're either going to have to pay silly money or wait 8 years. And like especially where their track record of buying these players has been really good. Same as Caicedo, same as Fernandes. And the more time they actually spend at the club, the better they develop, the better they become. The coach might change, but those players are going to be there for a long time and become the spine and core of what could be quite a good, exciting Chelsea team. So, yeah, I definitely think there's an argument to say add more sprinkling of experience alongside it, but they're going in the right direction, I think.
I just want to say, if anyone involved in the Mudryk case is listening, please don't give him a 4-year ban. I don't think that helps anyone.
Well, I think supposedly he's hired Pogba's agent, who managed to get it down to 18 months.
It's just
and
like,
he's already served, I think, 8 months.
I think Mudryk has had such a tough time at Chelsea. Like, he can't get over what's happening to his homeland. Yeah. He's really struggled. Slapping him a 4-year ban, I think, would really be like kicking a wounded dog.
It's not really. So, I agree.
We will see. We will see. Our next club here is Liverpool. The suggestion that came in for their biggest problem is obviously both their experienced fullbacks going. Obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold is at Real Madrid. Looks like Robertson could be making the move to Atletico Madrid.
Class.
Such a cool move.
Yeah.
Such a cool move. But yeah, this came from one of the Liverpool fans, basically saying that he thinks that could be a bit of an issue for Liverpool next season. Such a crucial part of their game for the last few years. Completely changing now with two different.
I don't think it's too bad. I think at the right back situation, you saw Conor Bradley and even Curtis Jones playing very well there last year. So it's not as if they don't have players to fill a void while they. I don't know, Frimpong coming in. I think Frimpong is a brilliant player who's done so well. Can't overlook like what he'll have been learning under Xabi Alonso, and it's not like he's got any language barrier or anything. Yeah. Like he was he born in England? I don't know.
I think so.
So like
we spent a long time in Manchester, something like that.
I
that way.
Whatever direction they choose, they've actually got versatile options at right back now. They've got an unbelievably attacking right back, and they've got Conor Bradley who can do a bit of everything, and Curtis Jones as well. So I don't think that's too bad. Left back is a bit more worrying. Yes, they've got Kirkesh, but they're going to probably have to get in someone else as well because I don't think Simicast is really up to it.
No, it sounds like he's going as well.
Yeah, he might be on his way. I still think they should do this idea with getting in a centre back can play left back.
Yeah, Hato would be the one for me.
Because that would be, oh my God, that'd be amazing. But then it gives them two really nice options. You can have a Kirkesh who's this flying fullback who I actually think this season as well has improved massively on his defensive game, along with obviously contributing going forward as well. But then having an option that is a bit more like they have at times when they put like Joe Gomez at right back or whatever it might be. Yeah. And having this guy who can kind of feature as a centre-back, left-back also gives the option of a back three that's really good. Liverpool generally, to be honest, need to be bringing in a left-footed centre-back anyway for the future-proofing of that defence. So maybe this could be a good time to do it. But yeah, a Hato, for instance, who could, over the next year or so, contribute here and now, with eventually the future being maybe the centre back, maybe a left back option for him as well.
Yeah.
I think that would be a fantastic idea.
If that's Liverpool's biggest issue, it shows you what a good place they're in. Like, I think that they've got to be careful not to kind of tip the balance too much where they lose a lot of experience. I think their biggest problem is their biggest issue to solve is get Konate to sign a new deal. Or if they can't do that, then try and get some money for him, I think, and then go and bring in another experienced centre-back this summer. Because Kirkes is experienced in the Premier League, but he's still young, making a big step up. Frimpong has obviously never played in the Premier League, but again, he's very attacking. Like Van Dijk,
Dutch international.
Yeah, he'll be absolutely fine. I think he's such a good squad option to have Frimpong. Like, I think it's a really smart signing, 100%. And also, they've got such a solid base behind them with Van Dijk and Konate, where if they do lose Robertson as well, if I was a Liverpool fan, I'd probably want to sell Tsimikas and keep Robertson. Maybe that's a sentimental thing. Just to kind of almost mentor Kirkes a little bit for a year. Not that he necessarily needs it, but I think it would be valuable. But if they were to lose Robertson, they've still got Van Dijk and Konate at the back as that really solid base that allows them to they've got two of the best channel defenders in the world, two of the best defenders in the world in their own right, very experienced playing at this level. They've got Alisson behind them, they'll be fine. But I think that's why for me the biggest issue would more be Konate.
Is there an issue as well for expectation next season?
Maybe.
Obviously they've won the league. I think teams maybe won't... not to say that they did it massively this season, but underestimate them as much next season. Do Liverpool fans think, well, look, we've just spent £120 million on Florian Wirtz. We've just brought in Frimpong. We've technically improved this side under a manager who's just won us the Premier League. Is there going to be an issue of, okay, well, we need to be winning the Champions League or the Premier League next season? Is there going to be that issue? Or is it more of like as long as they're second or first?
I think people need to be... if you said to them last year, you're going to win the Premier League in Arne Slot's first year in charge and have a pretty decent run in the Champions League, I think people are like, wow, that's ahead of schedule. So I be under no illusion, like Arsenal are going to be stronger than ever next year, City are going to be stronger than ever, Chelsea too. I think next year is going to be, it's set up to be a very exciting season in the Premier League. The second that fans get into a situation where they believe this is their year, they have to win it, whatever. Like Jurgen Klopp had years where they finished fourth. Jurgen Klopp had years where they dropped off. So it would be silly of Liverpool fans. I'm not saying like you shouldn't have standards like that. Obviously that will be the targets as they go into the campaign. But I think Liverpool fans are wise enough to know the peaks and troughs of how it can be as a club team. They've never been one like win, dominate, and I don't think they should start to expect that now. The thing about the Wirtz signing is it's Liverpool going out and beating other teams to like Europe's most exciting talent.
Bayern especially.
It is putting a flag in the ground saying we are part of that conversation now, whether you like it or not. All this time of Liverpool going, we can't afford these players. We're not, It's like, no, right, we're going to do this now. So that doesn't necessarily mean that success will happen straight away. I think it's just like showing where Liverpool are at the very, very top table once again of club football. And if it works out, amazing. I think it's an unbelievable transfer.
Agreed.
They're going to be a mighty team to watch out for next season, I think, Liverpool, especially with some of the additions and probably extra additions they'll make as well, I think.
Yeah, they're not done.
I still think the left wing or striker market could be something for them.
If Liverpool are looking at what PSG right now and going, with Wirtz, we should be better than them, then I think you're naive. Like, PSG looks so good at the moment and will probably only get better. So that's the litmus test, is whether or not you can beat PSG.
Yeah. There's been a lot of rumblings about Isak again the last couple of days, isn't there? But I can't
If
see
they
that,
added Alexander
my
Isak
word.
to that attack, it's kind of over for everyone, I think, for a few years. It's tough, that would be
an all-stars.
Mate, an attack that features Isak, Salah, with Frimpong making runs down the right, along with Wirtz behind. Jesus Christ, mate. That will be interesting. Okay, from one team that could end up having a superstar attack to one team that just needs some attackers, Wolves. I think their biggest issue at the moment is their forward options, because currently Strad Larsen is the only recognised striker or forward that they have next season. He is good. However, Hwang and Guedes are both apparently doubts for next season. Cunha and Sarabia are gone. Fabio Silva and Sasa are both likely to move on. Wolves' forward line is struggling possibly for next year. Obviously, Strad Larsen, I completely agree, had a really good year. They've obviously brought in another player from Celta Vigo as well. Fur.
He's very good. He's very good.
They're just basically bringing Celta Vigo over to Wolves. But yeah, they do need some more options. I think that's quite an absolute fair enough assessment, right, lads?
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
I like Kalajdzic. I'm really sad that he's been so injured. He's like 6
Yeah.
foot 7, big lump up front.
Yeah.
But
They set him on loan, didn't they? I mean, again, he's supposedly meant to move on, Kalajdzic, as well. He's got some suitors outside of the
he's going to
Premier
go to
League.
Germany on loan or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting to be. Like, obviously, Fer Lopez, from what I understand, is like an attacking midfielder. Again, it's sort of a different profile to Cunha, but they've also got Menetzi, who came in. Was it in January? In January,
yeah.
And again, he's not going to give you that output, but he's going to give you so much energy. And again, they're going to have to. Obviously, it goes without saying, they're going to have to really kind of work hard to preserve that Premier League status, and kind of also they're going to have like players like Sarabia leaving probably, who just has been a little bit underwhelming.
But he did have
Wolves.
moments.
He did have
Wolves.
moments.
Like, I really worry for Wolves next season. I really do. Like they're. To be honest, actually, if you look at their business over the last couple of years, it's not been terrible. They've actually ended up having some decent hits. They've had to spend a decent amount of money on some of them, but they have had decent hits. I thought who's the centre back they brought in January last year?
It was Agbadou.
Agbadou, I think was it Agbadou?
Yeah, centre half.
He ended up being pretty good for them throughout the season. I mean, Cunha ended up being fantastic. Strad Larson, brilliant. I think it's great that they've made that move permanent. I think it might have been an obligation to buy anyway. But losing Cunha, who genuinely at times for Wolves just dragged them through the season, especially the start of the year as well, I worry. I do worry because I don't know.
Quite a solid base for that midfield. I was just thinking about it again there. Like Andre and João Gomez, that's one
definitely not a bad midfield.
So
at all.
good, like really, really good defense. Like
their
pretty
keeper
solid.
last year was poor. Their keepers last year weren't great.
Sure, so Sarr turned it around towards the end.
Yeah, he did.
He had a bad period for a
They
long
need to
time.
add a sprinkling of quality. I do think that, like going through the squad, it's like obviously this is up to date because Cunha's still there, but they need to add like a little bit of X factor to kind of replace Cunha, obviously. But Fer Lopez could do that. Again, Wolves' business has actually been okay. If they could go and get someone though, like imagine if they could get Harvey Elliott. Or like, I mean, I don't
way out of their reach.
They could try. Like, if there's other Premier League teams that maybe don't need that
But do you
sort of
think
player
they should,
on
like-
loan for a year, like.
But really, should they be looking at kind of like Cunha obviously contributed so much for them? Should they be looking to kind of spread that contribution across the team?
Well, to be fair, when Cunha got injured, I think this is where the manager deserves so much credit for last season, because when Cunha got that ban against Bournemouth, Vitor Pereira obviously was without Cunha for 4 or 5 games. They won all of them and drew one. I think they won 3 and drew 1, or maybe won 4 and drew 1. They coped. They coped with overrated, overpriced. They coped without Cunha. They did really well, and they kind of harnessed that sort of spirit of like, actually, we don't need him to.
Yeah.
The thing is, Strand Larson is a more conventional centre forward. Like Cunha's dropping around. Cunha basically had a do what you want card last year, where he was dropping into spaces.
License.
So Strand Larson. Essentially, I think when Cunha doesn't play, they can play a more structured system. So going back to what we were talking about, Nottingham Forest, they managed to finish 7th last year, essentially with Chris Wood and one other striker in the front. They do have Hwang as well, and they've got Strand Larson, who I think is going to have another brilliant campaign next year.
Well, there are rumours about Hwang possibly moving, I think.
All right.
That's the issue.
Hwang's not good enough anymore, I don't think. Like, I was quite a big fan of him.
He's had moments, but he's
a
never
couple of seasons
quite-
ago, maybe, but last season, he's not bad. I think he probably needs upgrading. The issue with Wolves is that I feel like Wolves fans will be able to in a better place to tell us more, but it always feels like they've got financial problems. It always feels like they're not able to kind of really. They've obviously lost Ait-Nouri as well, who is a big creative asset for them. It will be almost as not quite as big a loss maybe as Cunha, but he's such a big part of that team. They need to kind of go and replace him. Whether they're in line to already do that, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Kirkes could potentially be an option for them, left wing back. I know he's kind of different profile. I don't know. Maybe he has slightly loftier ambitions, but I think they'll be okay. But
Totti Gomez, he's real good.
Yeah, he's good. The defence is good. Like the defence is pretty solid. And I love their midfield.
Pretty sure hasn't Dawson left as well?
I love Andre. I love João Gomez.
It's not very. Like, the only thing they're missing is flair. They just need to get a bit of flair and creativity in there. Other than that, I think they're all right.
Okay then. Well, there you have it, Wolves fans. Again, everybody, let us know in comments below what you think about all of these biggest problems. Do you think there are bigger problems? Do you think there are other problems? Let me know in the comments below. Leeds, one of the first new boys to come up. We'll get onto it more with Sunderland, but they all shared, when I spoke to them, they all shared the same fear. So we'll move on to that when we get on to Sunderland. But for Leeds specifically, Daniel Farke is maybe the biggest problem. His Premier League experience isn't great. Whether he lasts past December, is a very good bet. And he's also adaptability in games. Doesn't make substitutions at times till the 80th minute.
Yeah.
This could be a very big issue, possibly for this Leeds side. Now, this is also a Leeds side who have good money behind them. They're part of the Red Bull group now as well. They've got finances there to spend. I think they need to spend it. That's for sure, because they have. I don't think their team is that great that came up from the Championship. They've also lost one of their key contributors, who was obviously Solomon last season in the Championship. What do we think about Daniel Farke, Henry?
I feel really sorry for him because there is such a target on his head already in terms of rumblings. The ownership have already been thinking about whether or not they should replace him.
It's never a great start.
Listen, it's no bad place to be, being known for being someone who's great at getting your team out of a Championship. Like, that's a pretty good situation. Like, that makes him very employable for a long time.
Yeah.
But he will obviously be wanting a go at a top team. It didn't even work for him really when he went back to Germany. I think he was at Mönchengladbach there. So he is a bit of a Championship expert. His problem is the second that Wolves start to drop off a bit, he will be the one who's blamed.
Yeah.
Whereas
he doesn't. His press conferences aren't great. Like, Leeds fans aren't necessarily his biggest fan anyway.
Yeah, he's not the most charismatic or enigmatic.
The thing is, you look at, they just got Umecha through the door, forward, 3 goals and 19 appearances last year in the Bundesliga. That doesn't scream good enough. Like Joe Perreault, how do I say it? Joel Perreault. Again, is he a very good Championship striker and not a great Premier League striker? We don't really know. Is he a bit of like a Dwight Gale, let's say? Yeah. It's they are missing. I know they managed to hold on to a few people that went down, but they are missing. They're going to have to be smarter than some, because they play attacking football, they play nice football. But as we've seen, which other teams that have come up after blitzing the Championship, I'm more confident that Burnley are going to stay up than I am that Leeds are going to stay up, frankly.
What Leeds do, though, I guess, at least for the transfer market, is they've showcased before, look, they can attract good players and find, like Rafinha, obviously, when he was at Leeds in the Premier League, was unreal. Yeah. And what they do is show that, like, look, if you come to us whilst we're in the Premier League, and if we get relegated, we are more than willing to sell you on for a fee that isn't, like, stupid money. Yeah. They have showcased that before. So I think in that element, that could help on the market. Farke-wise, though, I think could be really detrimental. Mainly because when I speak to my mate who's a Leeds fan, he goes, Farke's plan B is just do plan A better. Which is not necessarily sometimes the best option. Like, we saw how that worked out for Southampton last year and Russell Martin, who's obviously gone off to Scotland.
Can relate as well.
And Postecoglou, just do plan A better. And whilst, it can work out for some teams, I do slightly worry for this Leeds side, because also, like, Notto looked like a good Premier League player, I think, previously. Yeah. He, in the end, was linked to Everton. The move never quite worked out, and I think kind of found his kind of dropped off to what people were possibly expecting from such an exciting player. But maybe we'll see him really step it up again this year. I do slightly worry for Leeds, and we'll get on maybe to the bigger aspect about the guys that have come up when we get on to Sunderland.
They need a new goalie as well. That's one of the biggest things.
For sure. They
need a goalie.
Okay, then Arsenal. A couple of options here for the biggest problem. Can't sell for value. Apparently, they're talking about only getting 20 million for Kivior from Italy. Not enough risks taken in the transfer market, and their what's that word?
Variety.
Ben? Variety. Couldn't say it. Variety in attack. Obviously, the attack angle is probably the biggest issue. That one's been spoken about for a little while now. We've mentioned it a few times. The striker is so key about getting him in, about trying to fix that number 9 issue and the left wing issue, right? We've mentioned Matoma as somebody that they should be looking at. But trying to change up that attack and giving them different options. I don't disagree necessarily. That probably is the biggest issue, especially for next year if they're wanting to go to that next step. That is the big one. Selling your players for more money is an issue, but I don't think that's the biggest one.
No, I agree.
They absolutely will be buying a striker. By all accounts, Berto lines up loads of deals, and then just basically he'll just decide which one he wants to do. Push comes to shove. So it does look like either Sesko or Gyökeres will join the club. So that's fine. That's that box ticked. Yeah. I'm not worried about Arsenal at all. I think they're in a really... I think what they need to fix is so glaringly obvious that they almost can't screw this up. Do you know what I mean?
I get what you mean.
It's not as if they have to scattergun approach in the market and figure out what's what. On the Kivior situation, what are you expecting? You bought a bloke for 20 million. He's sat on your bench for ages. He's come on and played a few games towards the end of the
He has
season.
looked good though.
Yeah, but that doesn't make him like a 35 million, 40 pound
Because that
defender.
also is part of what pricing is, right? Is how key they are to your squad.
And who, if they're trying to sell back to Italy, who in Italy is going to go, oh yeah, I'll give you 35 million? Because they just don't do that.
No.
They're not going to just spend silly money like maybe you'll dupe AC Milan into doing it.
And you got Calafiori there as well. You know, Ben White is still a guy that plays centre back if needed.
Yeah.
Only Liverpool seem to be able to sell Deadwood for like 25 million, and that's because they sell to like Brentford and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? As in like players they don't need in their squad. So I'm not sympathetic towards Arsenal that just this wondering why they can't get a premium on players that they don't play. Like that doesn't work like that. No. So yeah, but I think Arsenal, I wouldn't worry. Like I think we're about to see a really exciting window. I think this is the year that Arteta goes, look, plug these holes, please.
And again, like we mentioned it in the last episode, transfer window isn't open yet. We've got
back open now.
Is it literally back open now?
Yeah, opened again the other day. But it's like,
sorry.
But it's like, but it's like,
it's only just opened.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think it is.
Open.
Yeah,
Things
but we're still in the first week of it being open again. So it's like I understand the what's the point about not enough risk taken in the transfer market. I think I understand why that's a worry for Arsenal fans based on the last few windows they have seen. Totally get it, but I do think, like Henry says, this is probably the summer that gets rectified, and everybody else can see the issue. They know, like Sesko's agreed personal terms from what. I think
it's the fee now. That is the
fee. But also they've got if Leipzig play hardball, they'll go, all right, we'll get Gyökeres then.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's not that big a deal. They're going to end up with one of them.
What a great situation.
And then they might go and get Rodrigo, who's like one of the most exciting attackers in the world.
If they end the transfer window and it took you an extra 2 weeks to get the deal done, and you end up with Sesko and Rodrigo in your attacking lineup, it's definitely not too bad.
This is the thing. I think like the current way that transfers kind of get like reported and leaked, and this whole thing of the Club World Cup transfer window opening and then closing again and then opening again, there's kind of warped football fans' perception.
Yeah,
we're constantly fed like transfer nuggets from like Fabrizio Romano all the time. It's like people are obsessed with transfers.
But it's also a competition in its own right at times, right? The way the transfer window feels at times. If your club's not doing anything, then your club is losing. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
And actually, Liverpool showed last season. Sometimes not doing anything can work out in your favour. Maybe less so when it happened to Spurs, but it's how
buy
the
a player for 18
cookie crumbles.
It's not like on FIFA where you just put a bid in, you play a game, and then you see if they've accepted or not. Like you don't know.
True.
A lot of these players are probably go on holiday. They probably don't want to talk about it. Like there's so many reasons why deals aren't done straight away. It might be like competitions they want to get concluded.
Some of it is like third-party issues, like your image rights aren't available, or there are so many extra parts that come into it that people don't even think about.
Yeah, so it's. I really wouldn't stress. Like if you're seeing these links and they're being repeated, it's a good sign.
Yeah, it's like Wirtz hasn't actually signed for Liverpool yet.
Yes,
like,
that might change in 48 hours.
We know it's happening. Like it is obviously happening, but like. He's not signed on the dotted line.
No,
these things take time. It's like
and also it's also a big part of it can also be structured the deals. It's like, okay, we might agree 60 million, but is it 20 million, then 10 for another 5 years?
Or is it United are the kings of that. We'll give you this much, but we'll give you this
up front.
Exactly. And they're like, no.
Exactly. Well, that's a big part of the Gyökeres. Is that the Gyökeres deal? There's one of the deals at the moment that's being spoken about where it's like the actual issue is more that the club wants so much of it up front.
It's the structure
rather than how it's built out. Okay, then from Arsenal to one of their title challengers for next season. They obviously featured yesterday. Some of their new players were playing Manchester City. There's a great photo, by the way, that I thought of. Obviously, they were playing. Was it the Moroccan team yesterday? Wydad. And it was just great. I saw, was it Jonathan McKenzie from Tifo who put it on Twitter, where it's the Wydad from their goal kicker playing it out from the back with the two defenders next to the goalkeeper. I was like, this is what you've done.
Football
Pep.
is class.
This is what you've done, Pep.
I will say on the Club World Cup, I'm only interested in the group stage. The second this boils down into some light Champions League,
so you're the opposite then of how everyone else probably feels about it.
I get that though.
You enjoyed Auckland City, Auckland getting battered 10-0.
I'm here for Esperance. I'm here for Wydad. I'm here for River, Boca.
Yeah.
Like the second this is just like fucking City and PSG having a ding dong in the semi-finals, I don't care.
I have bigger issues around like player welfare and like how it got there. The actual tournament itself,
a load of money, aren't they?
The actual tournament itself, I don't mind. Like I like the idea that this team that are semi-pro, who one of them is a janitor or whatever it was, or a teacher. is playing against Elise and Fimi. I think that's fun.
I think in principle, the Club World Cup is a great idea.
Yeah.
It's just the motivations for it
Agreed.
are the wrong reasons.
I would agree. Maybe we'll talk about that in another video. But yeah, Manchester City, one of the biggest issues that we kind of have seen from you guys at home talking to me, getting old players on big wages out. Jack Grealish, Kyle Walker. Obviously, they seem like those transfers are going to happen anyway. And the other one is a new goalkeeper. Obviously, Ederson, it feels like, at least from what the City fans are telling me, they feel has kind of dropped off over the last maybe 2 seasons. Isn't getting any younger. Stefan Ortega is actually a year older than Ederson and is actually, I guess, the number 2 anyway. Yeah. They brought in Marcus Bettinelli as a third choice. That doesn't really make too much of an impact. And yeah, they were linked to the Porto keeper, Diego Costa, for a few times over the last few years.
Yeah.
That is a position, I think, of need. They've obviously done a few of the other ones, central midfield, attack, so on and so forth. Is it goalkeeper that's probably the next one?
To echo what Ben said about Liverpool, if these are City's main problems, then that's fine. Like, Ederson is not a bad keeper, and I like if you said to City, you have to continue Ederson and Ortega as your goalkeepers for another year, you're like, all right, fine. Yeah. And then in terms of the older players, I think Jack Grealish is smart enough to know. Jack Grealish, that is the main player we're talking about here. So if De Bruyne's wages are off, I think is Kyle Walker's
I think he's out of contract anyway, isn't he?
Is his contract not expiring now? Is Kyle Walker not done?
Maybe.
We'll have a look.
So Grealish, it does look like he's going to go on the move. And if fair play to Napoli saying we're not going to give you $300,000 a week. So he's
going to Everton, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah, Walker's going to. Yeah, not Grealish.
That's confirmed.
Walker's, pretty much.
Oh.
Wow. Everton picking up another golden oldie at fullback.
I love it.
I saw a few Everton fans actually complaining about this because they were like, he's so old. But I was like, he's not the worst. For Everton's level, it's not the worst right back option. Yeah, especially like Ashley Young's left as well. Seamus Coleman isn't getting any younger. I think he signed an extension actually for another year, Coleman. So having someone of Kyle Walker's ilk is definitely not
fine.
He's out of contract.
Walker's off. De Bruyne's gone. Bernardo Silva has just been made captain, so he's probably going to stick around for another year. Mm-hmm. So really, you're looking at the only person we're referencing here is Jack Grealish,
and they're going to find a solution with him.
There will be a solution. Yeah. So I think again, I like the business that City have done. It's kind of going back to basics. It's not going out and getting the greatest names ever. A few of these like project players that they've gone in, which shows that they are like really looking to the future. I like this. I think it's quite fun.
I think they're going to be so good next season. I think especially when Doku and Savinho are a year more experienced in the Prem off the back of last year. There's not that I know obviously, but there's been so much hype around Shirky, but realistically, with the other squad options City have got, there's not actually that much pressure on him to have a barnstorm of a season.
He's done it again as well, Pep, hasn't he? Just reinvented this side.
Yeah, exactly.
So dribblers.
Reinders is the perfect replacement for Gundogan. Savinho and Doku are the perfect replacements in the long term for Mahrez. When you watch Savinho, and it's not just because he also wears the same number as Mahrez, he dribbles like him, he beats players like him. Doku is kind of different to Sterling in a way, but if he can kind of last like he scored yesterday, if he can just find that ability to just poke one in at the back post, they're going to be so good. Reinders and Rodri next to each other, it's just...
Yeah. Then you've got Nico Gonzalez on the bench if needed, or playing. It's definitely a fun side. And they are just now changing again to a team that want to be taking on players and dribbling. It could be a very fun Man City side. And that's not to mention that Phil Foden actually played deeper than Cherky yesterday.
Yeah, and he was involved in both goals.
They were playing a very different
I think
but it could be really fun.
I think their biggest problem is Phil Foden. Is getting more out of Phil Foden. They've got to figure out a way to make him feel comfortable in this side, because you look at all the signings that they bought in. It looks like they're making options in case Phil Foden
drops off
again. So
that's smart as well. That's smart. They should.
He's meant to be a £150 million player.
And he can.
This is what everyone says he is. Yeah. Their biggest problem for me is figuring out a system that gets him back up and running again. Because if you try to sell Phil Foden, it'll be hard to get the money that they want for him right now.
Yeah, okay. I think the two kind of tens they played with yesterday, though, like you said, Foden was dropping a little bit deeper. You want to see again, it's so hard to judge because at this stage the Club World Cup is kind of a glorified pre-season tournament, let's be honest, especially with the quality of the opposition. But what I liked from Foden yesterday was something that we've kind of been crying out for a while. All the hype was about Cherky's debut. Oh my God, he's going to tear it up. Foden kind of grabbed it in the first minute of the game and scored, and then he was one of their best players. I think Foden's actually going to have a decent season. I think he's kind of going to be back to maybe not the level that we saw a couple of years ago where he was, a couple of seasons ago where he was the player of the season. But I think he'll be fine. Again, if these are City's biggest, it's like first world problems, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Okay, Ben, let's chat quickly about West Ham. Because there were a few big issues for them, big problems going into this new season. The future of Kudus is quite a big one. The future of Paqueta is quite a big one.
Yeah.
And I guess the pressure on Graham Potter, who didn't necessarily have the best time towards the end of the season. And West Ham's will be hoping that the start of the new season is different. And more positive, because otherwise, quite quickly, we've seen West Ham do it before. They can change manager very, very, very quickly during the season. Arguably, actually took a little bit longer than they needed to last season to sack Lopetegui. But yeah, Kudus release clause this summer is I think for a Premier League team is £85 million, and this is during 10 days during the transfer window in July, the first 10 days. Paqueta's situation, I think it's now waiting for the punishment. I think the actual case has been closed. But this is a big, big thing where if they lose him, they basically need to figure out a new attacking or central midfielder to bring into the side.
Frustrating for them. It feels like it kind of keeps getting kicked down the road a little bit,
yes.
the Paqueta thing, which is not helpful for anyone.
But this is someone who they were open to possibly selling for £80+ million at one point, and looked at one point they could get that money from Man City a season and a half ago. So yeah, this is the kind of situation of West Ham right now. Which one do you think is their biggest issue, Ben?
Trying to probably selling Kudus to just try and get some money to reinvigorate that squad. I think they've got to come down from £85 million. Otherwise, Kudus is a fantastic player, and I think there'll be a lot of Premier League teams lining up to try and sign him. Chelsea, Spurs linked to them the last couple of days as well. His versatility would add so much, and quality would add so much to any squad that's trying to compete at the top of that league. But I think, bearing in mind the fall off that we saw from him last season, where he probably clearly wasn't that motivated by things that were going on at West Ham. He lost his head a couple of times, obviously won against Spurs. He didn't. I think maybe he could be an £85 million talent, but I can't see any Premier League club going near that price. They're going to want to negotiate under that. So I think West Ham have to kind of meet in the middle somewhere with that, because I think their squad needs work, their midfield needs work, their defence needs work. I think we spoke about this last week.
Strikers need work.
Yeah, they need a lot, and Potter needs a transfer window to be able to bring in the sort of players that he wants, because that's the thing that's kind of saving him at the moment, is that, I haven't had a transfer window yet, or I haven't had a big transfer window yet. Let me get my players in that suit my system, and then we'll go from there. So that would be trying to get some money for your biggest saleable assets that clearly don't want to be there. I think would be the biggest issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they need to really manage expectations for me next year. West Ham fans, you never know how things turn out, but I don't look at the situation at West Ham and think there's a team that's going to be
battling for Europe.
I just think the top of the end of that table is too strong at the moment, and they've got, as Ben just said, they've got too many holes to fill in that squad. Just give Potter time, give a manager some time just to implement his style, whatever. He did make them harder to beat, like it or not, compared to Lopetegui.
But which wasn't the hardest job in the world, though.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, Lopetegui's no mug. So the point being, I think West Ham just need to have a bit of hubris next season about where they are.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Sunderland is our next team then. And now one of the biggest problems, I think, this came from Digi Critchley. He said the fear of sub 11 points. He thinks, and again, this was mentioned by my mate who's a Leeds fan, that the jump up from the Championship to the Premier League is so big now and so tough against the teams you're playing against. I mean, in the last season, less than 60 points total was collected by the three teams that were promoted. It was one of the lowest ever.
Yeah.
It was the lowest ever. And I kind of fear for the same, really, for the three boys coming up now in Burnley, Leeds and Sunderland.
I am less worried about it than you on that. I do agree that Sunderland will probably go straight back down because this has probably come a bit too soon, this promotion. However, I don't think you can write off the impact the Stadium of Light
It's going to be such a tough place to go.
Will have on that.
But
St Mary's is not a fortress. Don't get me wrong, Carrow Road. Is it Carrow Road at Ipswich? Portman Road.
Yeah, Ellen Road.
God, that's a sacrilegious slip up that. Portman Road. Don't get me wrong, good atmosphere there. But I do think 45,000, whatever it is, at the Stadium of Light next year, Sunderland really get them going. I think they will pick up a few more points at home than we're giving them credit for, but they do need
more
to
than
get
11.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
I agree.
I think that they'll obviously they're going to be in a relegation battle.
More than 20. I genuinely don't know. They got absolutely battered by Newcastle in that cup game.
Yeah, they did, but that was a couple of seasons ago now. Like that was, and I don't know. Like I think Henry's right. Like I don't think you can underestimate how difficult a place they've got. When you think about what Sunderland,
but it's a difficult place though for 2 months, and then you've lost so many games, and suddenly the atmosphere can get
but
quite
if you then get in, say they pick up some decent points toward the start, then they have a difficult Christmas, and then they're kind of going into the new year thinking, oh god, like we're in trouble. Towards the end of the season, if they're in a relegation battle where they feel like they can see light at the end of the tunnel, because let's not forget, like there are teams that are currently in the Premier League that didn't get relegated last year that could easily be pulled into that as well. Like the quality of some of the teams towards the lower echelon. Like I know it was Spurs and Man United last year, and hope to God we're not in that situation again. I don't think we will be. But there are other teams in and around that, like West Ham were lucky not to be in a relegation battle last season. Wolves kind of got themselves out of it as well. That if the Stadium Light could potentially get them an extra 6 points, which could be massive, and if they've got like a few big 6-pointers towards the end of the season, that atmosphere could make a really big difference. And when you think about what Sunderland have been through as a club, their appetite to succeed in this Premier League is going to be so strong from those fans, and it feels like with the platform they have got and the size of the club they are, if they can, they will know if they can keep their heads above water and stay up this season, there's a really good springboard to kind of kick on there as well. Got a decent bit of money for Joe Bellingham, which they can reinvest. Smart decision, because I think he was a player that probably wasn't quite ready to make the step up to the Premier League just yet, even though I rate him and I don't think it's, the hype isn't just connected to Jude. I think he's a very good player within his own right that will be playing in the Premier League, I'm sure, one day. The squad's not amazing, but
it's not great.
It's not
great.
It's not great, but they can, again, if they reinvest that money smartly, they've got Paul, Sunderland. I don't know.
But the issue they have more so as well is they've got to rely on one of the teams in the Premier League having a really bad year.
Yeah.
Right, and we saw several teams last year not have a good year, and they still didn't get relegated. That's one of the big issues.
Really come close,
like Wolves, maybe West Ham. Like right now, obviously things can change depending on how the window goes, so on and so forth. Are two of the clubs that possibly come into your mind? I don't know who else really does.
Yeah, need a striker, that's for sure.
Yeah, because it's like it's like Spurs finished 17th, but we were nowhere near getting relegated.
Exactly.
But then again, I don't know.
And like there are other things at play where for the last 3 months of the season, you were focusing more on Europe than you were in the league and stuff.
I think as well, like I'm kind of saying this a lot about Sunderland because I want it to happen. Like I think everyone wants that.
Yeah,
like,
I get it.
And there's a feel good kind of story there. Like everyone wants Sunderland to do well. I think, especially with what they've been through. So I think it's more. It's a bit like Ipswich. You know how like everyone last season at the start kind of predicted Ipswich to stay up because we wanted them to. I think there's going to be a lot of that with Sunderland, and I will probably be guilty of that as well. But I want them to stay up. I do.
Okay then, Brighton. I think their biggest issue, guys, is keeping Matoma. To be honest, Matoma is genuinely probably one of their world-class players. But Labour is probably another. I think Labour they managed to keep. So at the moment,
price
anyway,
people out of that
for this summer. It looks like João Pedro is going to be leaving anyway, so they're going to be getting a decent chunk of change for him. You'd assume £60 million is the supposed fee for him.
From who?
Newcastle
and Chelsea's supposedly interested now as well, which I'm not necessarily a massive fan of that move.
No.
But yeah, Matoma, obviously there was links to Bayern Munich before. We ourselves have sent him to Arsenal a few times.
Yeah.
But I think keeping him is quite key, really, especially if they're having a bit of turnover.
I don't think that's their biggest issue because what Brighton have been so good at is having players in.
But he's been a consistency for them over the last few years, though, as well. I don't think it's worth. Like, I agree that they've managed to turn over other players, but Matoma, I think, has been quite a key part to be that consistent guy on that left flank.
Ciso just goes back there and is like unbelievable.
Could be really
next
good.
year. I mean,
Buonanotte as well.
I think their whole model and the way they operate is to have these players players like Gruder. We haven't even seen him do anything yet.
Started playing well. He sort of had a bright, almost like last bit of the season.
Was it him that scored the world against Liverpool? Or was it
I don't think so.
Other guy, the left back. Anyway, yes, Matoma was probably my suggestion. What would you say the biggest issue then is, Henry? Obviously, Hers are going into his second season. I think by the end of the season, managed to convince... Because at the beginning, Brighton fans weren't hugely enamoured with him. By the end, I think they did kind of get on board of the Hers train.
I sort of feel like Brighton have found their level in some ways.
They didn't get Europe this year.
They didn't get Europe this year. I think consistency, figuring out how to be more consistent, because we saw a lot of like rotation of the squad last season.
Yeah.
I think for me the biggest issue for Brighton is just figuring out how to win ugly sometimes. I think that they're like so good at blowing teams away, but then they will drop points and will slip up unnecessarily. Like they need to become better at sort of grinding their way through results. And what we think about Brighton now is they're a team of really fun signings. They're fun managers, creative. It's all very creative. It's like an art school, really. But they just need a few scientists in there who are just going to do like an accountants. Does that make sense? Like they need, like everyone in there wants to be an artist and an actor, when really that's not how the world works. Yeah, exactly. You need a bloody bin man. You need someone who's going to do the hard graft that no one else is. So that's my point when it comes to these guys. Is they just they need to be a bit more rounded in terms of like how they approach games week in, week out, because otherwise, like they can look amazing some weeks, and then some weeks they can look a bit. They just drop off.
Yeah, I think they need a striker as well. Like I know
they brought in the Greek guy. They bought him in January, and he comes in this summer.
Yes,
Simas. Yeah, he had a fantastic year last year in Germany. And I think they're basically the idea is he's going to be leading the line along with Danny Welbeck in season 2. Also, they also brought in another striker. They're literally linked to another striker.
They just bought a striker from Olympiacos, some Greek fella, for £35 million.
Okay,
like he must. That's not just a.
It's got the Brighton tick. It's normally a
sounds
good
about
tick,
right.
isn't it?
Also, there's a lot of talent there, like still waiting to just explode as well. Like Minter was getting better as the season was going on. I thought like Adingra is someone who I think is maybe a little bit inconsistent, but a lot of wingers are, to be honest. I think he could be better again next season. Gruder. And like Ruta is someone that I think is so underrated. Obviously, he had a big injury towards the end of last season.
O'Reilly, they actually talked about them selling O'Reilly.
Yasin Ayari again. Like they've got a lot of good players.
It's like to go back to my point. And they're like, they've given James Milner another contract. Danny Welbeck's still starting. It's like, well, yeah, if you didn't have these guys, then you've just got a bunch of blokes who might turn up some weeks and look amazing and might not.
You know who was really good last year? Hinchelwood.
Yeah, he really came
good last year. I thought he came on massively as the season went on.
Make sure they keep like Van Hecker as well. Like,
even the bloke who scored that one goal against Spurs, he came from nowhere. He just, the one at the end, the 4-1, the last goal.
Oh yeah, was that I can't. I was so checked out at that point. I think it was
Ayari, I think. Anyway. But yeah, okay. And the other thing, sometimes with Brighton's, everyone's always said like they got to figure out maybe what they want to do. Do they want to try and have a season where they can go further on without selling players? But yeah, let us know in the comments below. Brentford's one. I think we'll keep this quite short. Biggest issue. Losing Thomas
Staying
Frank.
up.
Yeah. I'm rooting for Brentford.
That is part of an issue now. Losing.
I'm worried for Brentford. I'm really worried for Brentford.
I mean, you'd like to think that the stuff behind Thomas Frank has always been said that it's been really good. Frank's always loved it. Their structure's
stable,
unbelievable. However, they've never been tested like they have with this. They're going to lose Thomas Frank, or they've lost Thomas Frank. They're going to lose Mbeumo as well.
Yeah.
Also losing a lot of coaching staff. They're losing. There's rumours about Visser as well. Collins,
where's Collins going to go?
I don't know.
He was linked to Spurs.
I think to be honest, it was just probably lazy journalism. Like we've just taken their manager. Who else can we take?
They've managed to deal with before, like losing that key player. But they've always had Thomas Frank there, and he's managed to change it up. This year, they've lost Thomas Frank. They're going to lose the key player, maybe another one as well. It's going to be tight next season for them. I think that's the biggest issue, is just making sure that behind the scenes, things are set up correctly for this. Look, they're also not idiots. They've probably been thinking about losing Thomas Frank for the last 3 seasons now. They would have had this kind of plan and action, I'd like to think, in place for what happens once Frank goes and what they do going forward for this. I think next season the big thing is just about staying up.
Yeah.
Keep yourself in the Premier League. Keep yourself in kind of within that 40-point range. Just get above that, and you should be okay.
I think so.
Especially with the teams that have come up.
A lot of the credit at Brentford also has to go to Phil Giles and Matthew Benham as well, who've done a lot of amazing work, like in terms of providing that structure for Frank. Frank isn't I'm not just saying this because he's our manager now, but he's an amazing coach who is incredible at improving players, platforming them correctly to get the best out of them and to win football matches. But Matthew Benham and Phil Giles, for what they've done behind the scenes to create that structure. I think Phil Giles is director of football. I can't quite remember what Matthew Benham's role is. But they've done so much amazing work at Brentford. I think also getting in, there would be alarm bells ringing, but Keith Andrews looks like he's going to be the new manager, which I actually think is not the worst decision in the world, of having someone that knows the club like the back of their hand inside out.
It's what they did with Frank, right? Frank was the assistant manager, and then became in first team.
Also, when Frank, I know they weren't in the Premier League at the time, but when Frank was appointed the manager, he lost 8 out of his first 10 games and was able to turn it around. I think Brentford, a lot of that they brought in someone, I can't remember who it was after Mark Warburton when they sacked him, who it wasn't going well. The underlying numbers in training, etc., weren't good. They couldn't see any sort of progression. Whereas with Frank, even though he's losing the games, they could. And I think as long as they can kind of see that it's working, but it's just not quite coming off in terms of results, they'll probably stick with someone like him, like Keith Andrews. So they're going to get them time. No, I can't remember
who was the manager that he was
it wasn't
manager
English.
To? Frank. Who's Frank?
It was Dean Smith.
Dean Smith.
Yeah.
Dean Smith. That's it.
If Keith Andrews goes on to be an amazing Premier League manager, then I'll believe that I can.
Well, they really wanted to keep Justin Cochrane, who is Tottenham's now assistant manager, to make him the manager. So they obviously very highly.
That was apparently the thing that made the deal take longer, right?
Yeah,
they were trying to get that.
Keith Andrews was like pundit at Sky when we were there. It was like him and Joby McAnuff doing all. Now he's about to.
You were also pundit at Sky, so just wait.
He was always, every time I saw Keith Andrews, he was really well dressed, very well groomed,
good hair on him. And so he'll have that box. Whether he keeps them up will be.
I hope they do. I hope they do okay.
I like to think so as well. I think Brentford's almost a kind of like everyone enjoys a Brentford. I think, or seeing them in the Premier League. Maybe not the old Barclays guys, but they'll
I don't think you can get more Barclays than
as a West Brom.
I actually don't like Brentford as a Fulham fan. I've really grown into that rivalry from nowhere.
Okay, then our next team, Manchester United. Biggest problem. I mean, again, we speak about Man United quite a lot. But one of the biggest problems I've got here is lack of physicality of the players and lack of quality in attack.
I will say their first fight, this whole fixture nonsense is ridiculous because
you play everyone anyway.
Yeah, you play everyone twice. But
not an ideal start, is it?
Not an ideal start, having arguably, statistically, the hardest start of the season.
Amorim gone by October?
And by the way, Sunderland, just to go back to Sunderland, in my opinion, have the easiest start of the season. So there is a...
Doogie was quite happy with it.
There's a springboard.
Their December, I think, is like...
Yeah, don't worry about that.
It's nowhere near as bad as like Burnley have got a really tough start.
Yeah. But my point is they could make a good dent on that 11 points by December.
By having 4.
Nearly halfway there.
So United will just be like...
Get through the first 5 games.
Level-headed, Just like,
No. I think, look, we speak about United all the time. We speak about how the attack needs work. We speak about how the midfield needs work. We speak about how the goalkeeper might need to change.
I just don't care. But I don't want to sound like Pat Van Trine. I just don't care.
We
do speak sick of Man United, I'm going to be honest.
What do you want?
But I think the biggest issue is probably striker. Like, let's be honest here. We spoke about it a few times. If you get Gyökeres, amazing. If you get Osimhen, amazing. If you get someone up top.
I don't know who they're going to get because apparently Gyökeres doesn't even want to go there.
Yeah.
And when he doesn't want to go to the manager that turned him into, like I know
a few players supposedly turned down Amorim, which is interesting.
Yeah. Other than Brian and Buemo.
Do you want to come to a club where you'll get hammered by the press every single week? You won't be playing European football.
Yeah.
And if it all goes wrong,
you're the blame.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and you've got to score the goals. It's not even like you're just a midfielder that's kind of got to be in amongst it. You've got to score the goals. But Man United's number 9.
It does make sense. But look, you guys at home, Manchester United fans, what do you think is the biggest problem for your club right now? The biggest one, not a list. I want the biggest one in the comments below, and I'll be replying to you guys down there because there are quite a few. And maybe it's just players performing for the manager. Henry, Fulham, biggest problem because I found this quite difficult to be fair. Like, you guys were in a nice place last season. Maybe dropped off slightly towards the back end of the season. What do you think the biggest issue is? Is it kind of getting the most out of Emile Smith-Rowe again?
I think we
rejected the deal for Munoz.
We need a nastier bone in our body, really, because everyone else has said it, and it's exactly the same in my opinion. We were very good against the good teams, but Fulham's ability to switch off against the bad teams is unprecedented. Like our ability to...
Bit complacent.
Complacent. I remember watching Villa away where it's like basically we had to beat Villa away to stay in the race for Europe. We just got the ball, we knocked it around a lot, all very nice, all very pretty, and then nothing came of it. Yeah. And then annoyingly we go away to Brentford and go and beat them, and everyone's going nuts, and it's just like, well, where was this? Where is this week in, week out? Like when we need it. Like we dropped points against Southampton at home last year. I think we're one of the only teams to do that. There are other teams, but yet we went and beat Forest, took 6 points from Forest, took 6 points from Newcastle. We're one of the only teams to lose twice to United last year. I mean, it's just really annoying. So Fulham's biggest problem is, again, it's just figuring out a way to win ugly. Because really, I mean this wholeheartedly, really Fulham should have been in Europe this year. Yeah. If you look at where we were, 6th at one point, the football we were playing. We need to get a striker. We need to get another striker.
You just rejected a deal from Munoz, apparently.
From who?
I'll find out. But
I don't want to lose Munoz. Like, Jimenez is 34. We should 100% be moving Jimenez on, send him to America or Mexico, and get in a different profile of striker. Do you know what I mean?
You rejected a deal for Moon. Oh my goodness! My finger just couldn't press anything. From Leeds. There you go. From Leeds.
Monster bid, apparently.
Why would we sell him to Leeds? That just makes no sense to me whatsoever.
£32 million you rejected.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fair enough because if we sell, put it this way, if you sell Munoz now as Fulham, you're left with Raul Jimenez, and then you've got so much to do. There's no guarantee.
You didn't own Stansford.
No, he went to he went to Birmingham for like 20 million.
Yeah, it was league on record, wasn't it?
That's a monster bid.
So
£32 million.
Yeah, but it is a monster bid, but it's not enough to put yourselves in a situation where 34-year-old Raul Jimenez
40 million.
Oh, no, I still think he's like almost invaluable at this point.
I really like Muniz.
Yeah, so especially you do unless you brought in another striker and then suddenly you can.
It's just not worth selling him unless Mitrovic goes. I want to come back from Al Hilal, and then in which case you maybe go for it.
And he's got another 3 stone on him.
No. Fulham's biggest problem is essentially defining who they are at this point in time and what they want to do next year and supporting Marco Silva, because I really think we've got 1 year left of Marco Silva before he's going to basically have a Thomas Frank moment where it's like, there's nothing else that you can do with this team. So
welcome to Manchester United.
This summer is about defining who we are and how we're going to play next year.
Okay, fair enough. Crystal Palace, the biggest issue, I think we all agree, Europe. It's got to be figured out because Palace can't really do anything, whether in the market, whether in how much money they should dedicate, so on and so forth. Who should they be attracting until they know they've got Europa League football or not?
I think they're going to reach agreement. I think UEFA are sympathetic to their cause.
Once that is done, it changed everything.
Was it Drog? Who was the Irish team that got?
They got kicked out.
Which is it doesn't bode well for Palace. But I know there's a lot of Palace fans will be best placed to say, but there's a lot of because I think a lot of people were comparing it to other situations, but there's a lot of different intricacies that make this slightly different.
But this is the biggest issue for now, right now, and it will be sorted by the season starting. However, it's a huge issue for them because they can't act upon things right now in the transfer market. They can't allocate budgets. They can't decide how big they need the squad to be if they're going to be battling in Europe as well. What kind of quality player? Whether they should be selling a Mark Gehi or let him run down his contract if they're going into Europe, so on and so forth. That I think is probably the biggest issue for them to be honest. And then again, they need to decide whether they want to loan out certain players, keep certain youngsters, whatever it might be. Esse, who obviously they brought in January, like, do they loan him out if they're going to be in Europa League? Do they not? This is, I think, is a bit of an issue for them. Or not a bit of an issue. It is the biggest issue right now at this moment as we're recording the podcast. Again, tomorrow it might come out that they're all absolutely good, fine. And then I think things change. But for right now, Palace's biggest issue is just seeing whether they are in Europe or not.
I still think this is the summer they lose Eze, by the way.
Oh, I mean, that would be a bit of a big issue as well. But that would be a bit of a big issue. But until that happens, we don't know. Okay, Newcastle is the other team. Their biggest issue I've got is just PSR and quality. It's not too bad PSR-wise, but quality of depth everywhere.
Everywhere.
Genuinely, to be honest,
well.
like their quality of depth isn't fantastic. We still think they need a right winger, obviously, as well, to help challenge with Murphy. Their midfield, like if one of them gets injured, doesn't necessarily have quality depth there for them to be replaced. Yeah. Same with centre backs, arguably. Same with full backs. Really, like I think Dan Burn really kind of came the left centre-back option rather than a left-back option nowadays.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall are definitely the future of that full-back situation. But if one of them gets injured, there are question marks to be had there. Midfield, if one of them get injured, like if a Bruno Guimaraes gets injured, what happens there for them? If an Isak gets injured, what happens there? Like that is a huge issue for them.
I suppose with that, at least with the Isak thing, they've got João Pedro probably coming through the door who can play anywhere across that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not massive on the João Pedro thing.
Yeah,
like I'm not really huge on it, to be honest. I understand that they need a versatile attacker, but to me that smells a little bit like they are a bit fearful of losing Isak in the next couple of years. I still think they need a right winger. We've said this so many times. Go and get Nani Madueke. Like fullback depth, 100%. There's rumours of Saudi clubs being interested in Joelinton, but I can't necessarily see that happening. Maybe players like Lewis Miley will kind of step up again. I just think, I'd be a bit worried for Newcastle just with that depth. But it feels like they're maybe out of the worst of it with the PSR situation, to the point where maybe they can now go and flex their muscle a little bit and go and kind of build that squad in a more competitive sense, because they've got a really good first 11, they've got a really good manager, they've got some really good bench options. But in terms of as a squad that wants to use the Carabao Cup win as a platform to then go and challenge for the Premier League title over the next 5 years.
Go far in the Champions League.
Go far in the Champions League. So, like, they were very unlucky in the Champions League last time, to be fair, but it did feel like it came a bit too soon for them anyway. But yeah, I totally agree. Squad is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with them in this transfer market. You might see as well, once the July starts and that kind of previous season's closed in the books, these guys might start making a few more moves as well. Burnley, obviously the third team that came up and got promoted, second place in the Championship. I think the midfield's a bit of an issue. This is where, when I was speaking with Jacob, who's a Burnley fan I've had on a few times, he was mentioning that he thinks the midfield's a bit of an issue. They can't start Cullen, Brownhill and Hannibal in the Premier League. He thinks, especially for Brownhill, he last season in the Championship was allowed to be much further forward to contribute attacking-wise. They can't afford to do that.
There's also rumours of him leaving, isn't there? There was a West Ham bid apparently for Brownhill.
Yes, but they can't afford to do that in the Premier League. So he thinks the midfield needs to be revamped. And then again, Burnley, we've spoken about it a couple of times, but Burnley's whole the way they played their football in the Championship was defensive first, which might actually help them out in the Premier League, as opposed to how it was, say, with Southampton last season. And arguably when Burnley were there, came up with Vincent Kompany as well. However, again, I just look at that squad generally and think they've lost one of their best centre backs, who's obviously gone to Strasbourg or going to Strasbourg, doesn't want to stay and play in the Premier League.
CJ Egan-Riley. He's gone to Marseille.
Yeah, another one that then moved as well. I do worry for their kind of future in the Premier League with having to replace already quality centre-backs who did so well for them last season.
They need to make sure they can keep Maxime Esteve as well, because I think he was probably the best centre-back. I think he will step up to the Premier League quite well as well. Very tall, very good on the ball, physical.
Trafford's another one, might be going to Newcastle. So that whole defence that did such a good job last season and learned how they wanted to play could be ripped up before the season even starts in the Premier League, and suddenly this kind of things that they're getting compliments for, which rightly so, has to be relearned and changed and adapted to very, very quickly when the league starts. I think the midfield is a very good shout as well, that they probably does need to be revamped, because I also wonder whether Hannibal, physicality wise in the Premier League, is going to be able to
it's a
huge
huge summer for their scouting department and their pulling power as a club, really, because if you look at sort of Leeds and even to an extent Sunderland, if you're a player moving to the Premier League and all those three teams are going to be fishing around the same ponds, Burnley's the weakest pool out of the three of them, isn't it? Really, let's be honest, in terms of club stature.
Yeah.
So
they have managed to find little gems, though, haven't they, over the years, Burnley? But it wasn't enough.
Can they apply that to the Premier League again?
Yeah, true. It's they've signed players like Odebear, and I'm not just saying it's a Spurs player, but I think there's a lot of talent there. But it wasn't enough to keep them in the Premier League at the time. Esteve, I think, is a really good player. They're able to find these kind of players, but again, it's just, is it enough? I'm not sure it's enough.
Well, our final team is Everton. I think their big issue is striker, to be honest. We've mentioned that a few times. Tiana Barry was someone we spoke about yesterday. He's obviously played for Villarreal, had a really good season, makes fantastic runs in behind. Nice to see kind of Everton's scouting department looking a bit more at these kind of players, a little bit outside the box thinking. But I think he's the second highest in Europe for runs in behind a defence. Obviously, what he's doing in Villarreal, very different. I think it'll be how it would be implemented maybe in the Premier League. However, Everton, we know how they played under Moyes at times. They need a striker doing these runs, and when Calvert-Lewin was there, or whoever was playing up top, to be honest, in the last 6 months of last season, they were screaming for someone like this. Yeah. So I think striker probably is the biggest issue.
Other than that, I actually think Everton are a nice spot. I think Moyes has brought the feel-good factor back to the club, the new stadium next year, the new ownership. I actually think there is a new dawn on Everton at the moment, which I'm pleased for, because after the years of absolute turmoil, I think the fan base specifically do deserve a kind of stable, clean slate, and I think they are going to get that. And you're right, if they can just sort out the striker department, strengthen a few other areas of the pitch. James Tarkowski, had an absolute stormer last year. They've got enough in defence, certainly.
Keep hold of
to be
Brentford
okay.
as well, hopefully for them.
Yeah, I don't know whether someone's going to jump in for Brentford in the end, but even if not, they've got O'Brien, like who proved to be
think they'll be
decent
okay. They'll be fine.
last season. But there we have it, guys. That is the video done. Well done, boys. One problem every Premier League club needs to fix before the start of the season. Thank you guys for joining us and listening, if you have so far, all the way to the very end. Henry Hill, the lovely people at home want to check you out. Where can they go?
I'll put a comment in. Give it a thumbs up if you've watched the whole way to the end. I'm always intrigued. Go to Football Joe. Go check out our new Behind Bars Real Betis, where we joined some Betis fans for a night. It was really good fun. Please go watch that.
Nice.
You, my friend Ben Bowman, where can they find you?
TikTok, YouTube, lots of content on there at the moment about Thomas Frank. So if you want to go watch that, do that, please. And then FC Bottle Job podcast as well. Go and give that a listen. Nice one.
That will all be linked down below in the description below. Again, check out the comment section. Let me know what you thought on what I said at the start as well about possibly Patreon and so on and so forth down there as well. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.